Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the New Earth Leadership Summit, inspiring spiritual entrepreneurs like you to stand in their personal power so that we can become the leaders of New Earth. And today I am so excited to tell you I have with me Teresa Collins. Hi, Teresa. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here with you, Teresa, and with all the people who are showing up with the New Earth Leadership Summit. Like, that is a mouthful, and I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're calling it the New Earth, and you're calling for a new kind of leadership. So I think everybody here that's listening, right? It's time for us to rise up and really take leadership through this transition. So thank you for inviting me to come play.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And I want to share with the audience some amazing and magical facts about you. So Teresa Collins is the co-founder of the Global Coherence Pulse. We're going to talk more about that. It's one of my favorite apps you can use, and there's more to it than just an app, of course. But you've actually been on the leading edge of a lot of spiritual development, a lot of movements within the spiritual community. You were there, you helped co-create or bring through the Gene Keys, that book, Gene Keys, which a lot of people know. You've been part of Wisdom University, the Thrive Movement, and the Resonance Science Academy. And now currently you are a partner in Live It Now Productions, and you work on projects like the Global Coherence Pulse, Islands of Coherence, and the Thrive Solutions Hub. So this is an incredible background. And when I got to talk to you before, one of the things that came through is I just was in awe of the type of being you are, because you seem to be like I said midwife was sort of the word that came to me, but there's this like facilitator energy where when you show up, it starts to materialize. So can we just learn a little bit about your story and how you operate, because your hand is everywhere and it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's been an incredible journey of really one project. I think at some moment I got tapped on the shoulder. It was early days with Barbara Marx Hubbard, before we really heard a lot about conscious evolution. I was in Santa Barbara. I was in a kind of a growing learning community there. And I got these, messages that started to come through, stories that have really impacted me. And some of them came from Barbara, like, our story is a birth. Like, what's happening right now isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough, right? That was an inspiring something that took me. And in a moment, I realized that my part of being a coherent presence on the planet, really showing up and doing my part, was aligned with this idea of our conscious evolution, that somehow there was a change happening and we had a role to play. And the potency of our presence and our love and our coherence was somehow going to make a difference. And when I chose that, cellularly chose that, then all of a sudden these opportunities for me to serve started to emerge. So early days with Barbara Marx Hubbard, we created the Evolve website, and we created learning programs in conscious evolution. We created a learning community. And I got to apply the principles of healthy living systems, of conscious evolution, of what I believe to be true from these stories.
Just talking about your story and how, you've have this beautiful role of facilitating. And like I said, there's this midwife energy. How would you describe it? Before I put my term on it, how would you describe the energy you embody?
Yeah, I think it is a midwifing energy. And I feel like I've been doing it from the moment I said yes to partnering with life. And that was way back in like in the early 1998, 1999, when I really started to feel my connection with life in a really profound way. And the more I said yes to life, the more life came and showed me that there were things for me to do. And what I found myself doing over these 25 years is midwifing evolutionary learning communities in different iterations and applying the principles of co-creation and healthy living systems into each one of those, because they all had this theme of conscious evolution. They all had this theme, like with the Gene Keys, every shadow contains a gift. We're here to evolve, like everything that I was getting involved in, unified science. We're this aliveness. We're not separated. Everything that was attracting this particular, energy was all about bringing forth the new story, right? New earth leadership, bringing forth a new story that we are not separate from life, that we are life, innovating and moving through an incredibly tender, precarious, potentiated moment right now. And we're awakening to that right now. So I've midwifed different learning communities inspired by an inspiring orator, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Richard Rudd with the Gene Keys, Wisdom University with Jim Garrison, Nassim Haramein with the Unified Science. And every time they spoke, you could see people were inspired by their message. But then for me, that wasn't enough. It's like, how do we actually live what we're saying? How do we bring that into the heart of our daily lives? So I was the one who would create the learning community structures, the invitation to come and participate and to learn together what these main ideas meant embodied in our lives. So midwifing is a good thing. I think as years have gone by, I would say a really good title for me is a coherence catalyst. I think what that was one of the things you experienced when we were together was that I believe that cultivating greater coherence in the heart of our daily life right now and doing that collectively in community is one of the most essential things we could be doing on the planet right now, right? Another story, another quote that captured me in those early days and inspired me was small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the system to a higher order. I believe we are a system far from equilibrium, and that life is gathering us together and calling us internally to greater coherence as the one main job that we can do right now to help everything. And that means that we turn our attention away from what's falling away. If we really are in a whole systems collapse, which I believe we are.
Oh yeah.
I really believe that we are. Then how can we respond to a whole systems collapse? Well, what does nature do? Nature begins to innovate in the face of the breakdown. It composts it, it regenerates it, it reutilizes it, it turns it into nourishment. So if we turn our attention from what's falling away, which is based on a perception of separation, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever we're looking on out there, if it's based in a worldview and in an activity of separation, and we turn our attention into what is emerging inside each of us and begin to connect with the inseparable nature of life. We're not separate from it. We're inseparable from it. And if we turn our attention inward to that unique vibration that each of us is, that unique note that each of us is, and we let ourselves be guided from that place, then our choices in how we respond to what's falling away changes. But if we feel separate, if we feel on the edge of a leap off the cliff without a sense that there is something deeper guiding this across the threshold, then we're paralyzed instead of like me, like excited, like I'm thrilled that there's a role that I can play. And that role is to turn my attention inward and to be the best me that I can be right now, right here.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And you know, what's funny is I'm actually weirdly excited about watching it fall apart too, because I know what's coming. And I know our part, that's why it's like I'm inspired to do this summit, because we do have a part to play. This is what we're here for. We're not here to watch destruction, like you're saying. We're actually here for the creation of the new. And while you were talking, the vision that came into my mind was, you talked about how life is teaching us how to do this. And I absolutely 100% agree with that statement, because for example, like the vision that came in my mind was like a volcano or a wildfire, right? These look destructive. They look like they're destroying what's there, but they're actually the seeding of an absolutely more fertile ground for something else to be built on. It's like another forest comes up from this spot.
Yeah. Well, a breakthrough often is preceded by a breakdown, right? We can't
Right?
break through without a breakdown. So one of the things that I learned early on, I really appreciate Barbara Marx Hubbard for, were these stories about that this crisis is a birth, that it's actually how the universe creates healthy living systems, how it transitions from one state to the other. I mean, the story of the early seas of Earth, where single cell life proliferated and filled the early waters, and they had such a good time. And then all of a sudden, they realized that they were overpopulating and overpolluting. They had no idea. They were just proliferating and living as single cells. And then they created a toxin called oxygen, and they were on the brink of extinction. Boy, sound familiar?
Right.
And what happened in the early seas of Earth is that life began to innovate with the pressure of that collapse, and it connected and it synergized and it cooperated and it created multicellular organisms, and the entire biosphere emerged from that leap from one state to the other. And it was the crisis of that breakdown, that pressure is what caused life to innovate at the next scale. And I believe that we are in that moment. And if life knows how to do it, if life has been doing it for 15 billion years, then I'm going to align with the intelligence of life, which means I have to believe that I am connected to life, that I am a vessel of life, which is true. And I know it. And I know it because I continue to turn my attention inward to what's emerging. And when I do, and I look around, I still see that we are in a world that is challenged beyond belief. Like, this is not about, oh, turn your attention away from what's falling away and put it inside your little heart and pretend like everything's okay. That's not it. But if I'm facing what's going on out there and I am not grounded in a sense of my connection to life, and I don't have that hope that life knows what to do, then I don't know how we can even live. We have to be asleep. We have to be asleep to it. So yeah. I'm saying I'm awake to the fact that we are in whole systems collapse. And it's not guaranteed that we're going to make it, not the human beings, but I trust that life is going to make it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to be a vessel of life innovating through me. And that requires me to put my feet on the ground and out of my head. It requires me to be aware of my breath and my presence in this moment right now, not in past orientation or future, what's going to happen, but right here. And if I take a moment to breathe, and I take a moment to drop into my heart, and I take a moment to connect into this trust that life is unified, not separate, which science is proving. We have everything that we need to accept that, try it on, put those lenses on. Then my next response is one coming from a place of connection and inseparability and honoring a diversity of loving compassion, midwifing, right? That midwife energy, right?
Yeah.
Very different. And so I'm not using my energy to push away what's happening. I'm not resisting what's happening. I'm not wishing it was different than it is. I'm coming into humble, and sober connection to the present moment and what I can feed the field, which I know makes a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the opposite. It's leaning in. It's leaning into this moment, but it's leaning in not from a place of fear, but from that place of that, the coherence, the connection. I mean, you're moving into the unified field, allowing it to inform you, right, of what step to take next. And I love that. And I actually want to go back to talking about coherence because this is how I found you. So, huge fan of Heart Math, love the work that they do. And then through their work, that's where I found Global Coherence Pulse. And so my first introduction to you and your work was through the app that you created. So can we talk about what you're doing there? Because it's amazing. So I want to help show the audience who might be new, might not know what Heart Math is or coherence is. I'd love for you to guide us through that and then share with us how this Global Coherence Pulse came about.
Yeah. So Heart Math, I'm not a employee of Heart Math. Heart Math's a partner for the Global Coherence Pulse. So I haven't created the app, but the team over at Heart Math has. So I'll just say that.
Okay.
And Heart Math has been committed to making visible the power of the human heart, the power of what happens when we come together in coherence, and our brains and our hearts and our bellies and our awareness are relaxed and they're in sync. And when we're in a natural state of coherence, which is our breath is slowed down, we're focused in our heart region, breathing in and out of our hearts, right? So we're not in our heads and spinning. We're now dropped into our body and we're breathing. Yeah. And we're evoking a positive sensation, right? We're living a life being grateful. We wake up in the morning grateful. We consider the things that love and bring us joy, even in the face of challenges, right? That brings us into a state of internal coherence. And our heart rhythms begin to be balanced with our brain so that the relationship of our thoughts and our actions begin to align. And it creates a spaciousness, right? Where we feel like we're rushing in time, and there's a spaciousness. And when we're in coherence, we are naturally aligned with the Earth's electromagnetic field. So as I was saying, right, if we're inseparable from life, if we're connected in a unified way, that there is no separation between me and life emerging, I'm just a note in that symphony. Then if I'm in coherence as a natural state, and that puts me in alignment with the Earth's rhythms, then I become more of an efficient vehicle for life to move through. And I think we're all awakening to that, where the blinders of separation are coming off, and everything is pointing to the fact that we're all connected. And the more that we're willing to embrace that right now in the face of everything that's falling away, I think is our only choice.
Yeah, it's the choice I'd rather make. It's definitely the choice I'd rather. That's where I feel the term New Earth is going. So actually, I'd love to ask you that question. When you hear a term like New Earth, how are you perceiving that? What does that mean to you?
See, that's just everything that I've been saying is like, we have a co-creative partnership with life, which means with this earth and with everything around us. And, I'm spending more and more time with my awareness in the bottom of my feet, so that I'm really right here connected on the planet, because she's going through an evolutionary leap. The earth is going through an evolutionary leap, and the sun is going through an evolutionary leap, and the cosmos is going through an evolutionary leap. We're like moving through a part of the solar system where everything's intensifying. So there's a frequency change that's occurring right now. And the earth, if I align more with the earth as she moves through her changes, then my ride's going to be like, maybe more like a big wave rider, where I'm actually getting the wave. I'm actually moving with it. It might be a little scary. It might be, but I'm moving with it, as opposed to moving against it or resisting it. And
Right.
so I believe New Earth leadership are people who understand our co-creative role with life and nature, and that we're operating as life from the inside out. We're operating in alignment with it. And in the early days with Barbara Marx Hubbard, Marshall Lefferts and I, who was the other co-director, we explored something called co-creative science. In co-creative science, it was by Michelle Smallwright. It was this tiny little book, but it really changed my life. And she said that humans and nature are naturally always in a collaborative partnership. They're in a synergistic relationship. And that humans' jobs were to set definition, direction, and purpose, which inspired what we wanted to create, that we could imagine anything. And then life, nature intelligence, would provide the form, function, and life vitality that was in balanced harmony with the whole of life. So that meant I could have a passionate intent, and I needed to hand it over to the altar of life and have life show me what form would be that would match what I was intending, that would be in balanced harmony of life. Imagine if we did that, what our cities would look like. Imagine what our homes would look like. Imagine the creativity that we have just exploded over the last 100 years, done in partnership with life and living systems principles, and with nature showing us how to do it in a balanced way, right? So to me, a New Earth leader is somebody who knows their role in the co-creative relationship that we have with life emerging anew on the planet. I really believe it's happening, and that we're an instrument and we're in right relationship with that partnership. That to me is like, so we have to be embodied presence. We need to be in resonance with life and what's emerging, and we need to be doing just the part we came to do, and not more than that, right? Just the note. We just got to sound that as clear and loud as we can.
That gives me so much relief to hear you say that, because I think that's one of the challenges of going through this time, is where, as we're in the shift and where everything's shifting around us, and there's a desire, I think, that naturally comes through our heart to stabilize or bring forward something. Like we can feel it coming through us, like we and I would say it's catalyst, right, which gets us to take action. So it's like, if you don't like what you're looking at, change it. Realize that you have the power to change it. At the same time, I feel like one of the trickiest parts is that sensation of overwhelm, that it's all got to change and I've got to change it all. So I love that you brought forward that we don't have to play the whole symphony. We're a note in a greater symphony, and it's just our job to be as clear and resonant as we can be in our part.
Yeah. You just reminded me of a phrase. I love different phrases, right, that have like inspired my life. And, it's not what you're looking at, it's where you're looking from that creates your reality. It creates your experience, right? So we've been looking from a sense of separation. And many of us who have begun to wake up and not really resonating with the world we're seeing that's based on that we could actually kill each other, and we could bomb each other, and we could take money away from each other, and we could leave each other homeless on the streets. Like, all of that doesn't make sense, right? But if we're looking from this place of unification inside of ourselves, we're going to see something different, and we're going to start to respond differently. And, one analogy and story that I really love, that I think so powerful for this time, and it's what had me turn away from what is falling away into what is emerging, is the caterpillar and the butterfly story, right? It's such a potent one, because again, I think it describes what's happening. And in that chrysalis, there's the caterpillar soup and there's the imaginal cells. Those are the two components that are in there, and the imaginal cells are emerging and the caterpillar immune system's killing them off. And I think we can see over, our history as we've been rising up, we've also had these inspiring people and moments that were telling us something else. We could feel it, but it didn't last, right? So when I heard this story, I realized that I was an imaginal cell, that the soup that I was swimming in, my identity based on what was going on outside wasn't me. Right. And the more I put my energy on how do I change it? How do I make a difference? I'm all speeded up. I have 100 jobs. I'm trying, right? I'm trying, and I'm got this timing that just feels like this, right? So instead I thought, okay, well, I'm an imaginal cell. So what's the job of the imaginal cell? So that meant I had to turn my attention away from the soup I was swimming in, which I didn't resonate with anymore. So why have my attention to the imaginal cell that I am and what I'm becoming? And as I did that, I started to realize that there's a vibration of who I'm becoming that's actually before any words to describe it, right? So I tune in, I breathe, I spend more and more time really tuning in. And what happens is that I start to resonate with other imaginal cells. I start to enter into a frequency of awareness that's being held by more and more people. And so then synchronicities come. And all of the jobs that I've had and all these wonderful learning communities that I've been a part of have all been part of one job, right? They've all been aligned with conscious evolution or unified expression, coherence, right? So just me turning my attention from the soup I was swimming in to what I'm becoming opened up my connection to a new kind of life, a new way through, a new perspective of life. And I think that's the new leadership, right? That's the new leadership. We're imaginal cells building a new body. And because we're so far from equilibrium, what is life doing? It's connecting us. It's having us synergize. It's having us join our genius. And as we do that, we realize there are so many other people doing other parts. So if I really relax, if I really trust, if I really get that the best option for a graceful birth is me aligning with the birth pains and not shying away from them and adding my love and compassion and care and presence, right? Then at least maybe it's going to be at least a graceful, as much as possible birth. And when I do that, I connect into a field of other people doing the same. And I think it's happening rapidly now. I think that we are all being called. And as I was saying, there's less work to do. And I'm starting to get that if I do my part, if I sing my note, if I hum that tune is specifically mine, then that's what life needs most from me. And it has, everything's become one project instead of 20. Everything that I say yes to, I say yes because it's resonant with my note. And the more I sound my note, the more I connect with other people whose notes are close. And there's a little symphony and a little song playing, right?
Yeah.
And one thing about that, though, that's really, I think, important is that when a note is resolving from one octave to the next, there's a little bandwidth right before that resolves. Marshall Lefferts so great at describing this, and it gets dissonant. There's like this little right before this harmonic wave and this harmonic wave go. There's a little bit of that, and I think that's that pain that we breathe through, that little dissonance. We don't get distracted by it. We don't get pulled into it. We just breathe through it so that then we can keep maintaining a different frequency of our awareness. And I think we're going through that. I think we're right in that little right before it resolves.
Yeah. I agree with you. And what you said, like, as you were speaking, and I heard my team saying, she's talking about harmonic resonance. She's perfectly describing what harmonic resonance looks like. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, it's so beautiful. I have to point out to those listening, because over here on the other side of this conversation, I'm asking her questions in my mind. And before I can even get them out of my mouth, she's resolving and answering them. And this is, I feel like I need to point that out, because I think it's a beautiful live example of what you're talking about,
Yeah.
of being in that resonant field. It's like, again, it's like, it's so beautiful because I'm literally writing questions down and she's answering them as I'm writing it. So I just had to share that, because it's like magic when you watch it happen, when you're in observance of this. I mean, um, this is what it looks like to be in that higher state of consciousness, that collective consciousness where we really are, understand. It's beyond an understanding of oneness on the logical level. It starts to become a felt sensation, right? And that's what I feel like you're talking about, but also you're beautifully expressing it in this moment. So I just had to point that out to everyone.
That's great. Let's just keep dropping right there, right? It's like, so you're asking about coherence. For me, I know that I'm in coherence when I feel an underlying relaxation in my body, right? And because I'm right here, and I can feel where I'm resisting. I'm aware of where I'm, pushing. And those are moments where I can stop and I can pause and I can bring myself back into my breath. I can think of things that give me hope. Like, I'll tell you one really key one, I think, for new earth leaders. So during COVID, when we were inside for 3 months, like nobody was doing anything, no planes were flying, anything like that, the earth regenerated herself at a scale that was unprecedented.
I
Unprecedented,
remember that.
just in 3 months. So me, somebody who, like, I'm going to trust the evolutionary impulse of life moving through me. I'm going to turn my attention away from thinking I've got to fix all those things. And I'm going to midwife this new thing that's emerging. I'm going to hospice things around me. I'm going to externally extend my care to the things that I can offer compassion and care to, but I'm not going to hold them together. I'm not going to keep them afloat. I'm going to offer my compassion as they fall away. But my attention is mostly in that midwifing, right, position. So I'm giving energy to what's new and rising. And so that gives us this spaciousness. It gives us the ability to slow down, and it gives us the choice in each moment of how we want to respond.
Yes.
And then you have other stories like what we feed the field matters. Roland McCready, you study heart math. You were talking about heart math and the app and all of these ways that they're helping us to see how powerful our coherence is, even in small containers like you and I.
Yeah.
If the quality of our presence and coherence is high, our impact is greater than if we had hundreds of people hanging out in this conversation, right? So it's like the quality of it. Yeah.
I mean, so much of what you're saying, and it's interesting because right before I get on these chats with people, I actually try to connect with you in energy, right? So I'm like opening my heart. I'm looking for you in the field, and I'm asking you to connect with me so that when we come together, it has this, it's a beautiful sensation where I think people really do experience this when they find Soul Tribe. They have that same feeling, but we can connect to this with anyone, really. But it's that resonant understanding of, like, I know you. I'm like, I don't know how I know you, but I know you, right? And it's at that level. Everything that you're talking about, first of all, it's very powerful and it's so inspiring. You've actually, inside the conversation, have given us so many steps and how we can tangibly connect. And you talk about your life and your purpose with so much clarity. And purpose and destiny are two of my passions. I think it's part of why I'm here, is to just help people connect to that energy. And I've been on that side of absolute confusion when it comes to this. So there's a couple of points, because I feel like there's someone who's going to be listening to this who might be in that place of confusion, and perhaps we could offer a little light of clarity for them. You had talked about feeling tapped on the shoulder and starting to work with nature. You heard the call. You're saying these things that are so powerful. And I guess what I want to hear from you, since you have this beautiful clarity, is how did you know? How did you know you were being tapped? How did you know it was a call? Did you know in the moment, or did it become clear as the picture unfolded for you?
Gosh, I think it's all of the above. I think that there's steps and there's a process that unfolds for all of us in finding our way home. And everyone is a little different. I was on a Clubhouse the other day for a Gene Keys for a city, and it was presence. That was the title of it, and that's the theme that we're exploring in the virtual retreat that I'm hosting right now. And to me, it's the kind of foundation of everything, because we're in the present moment, and we're dropped in, and we're connected in our heart, and we have our own attention, right? We have our attention. We begin to see and feel things differently. And I was sharing a story about, I have a particular gene key, and it is presence. And the start of it is superficiality, and then it goes to self-assurance, and then to presence. And I remember in Santa Barbara, I was definitely into yoga. I was talking to trees. You know, I already had this kind of strangeness, but I hadn't really broken through this kind of experience that I was having into kind of more of a cognitive experience. And I realized that I spent like months walking down the beach, kind of claiming something. I'm strong and healthy. I'm light and clear. I feel my connection to all things. I didn't feel those things, but I felt this impulse to call myself forward into that experience. And that's what I mean, like trusting that if right now, today, right where you are, in whatever place you are in your life, that you make a commitment to turn your attention inward to what's emerging inside of you. And you take time to begin to move your awareness through your body. I love to breathe up through the bottom of my feet, the intelligence of the mycelial network below my feet that knows how to compost and regenerate and rejuvenate and bring that energy up into my belly and clear my physical body so I can let life move through me more, right? So just turning our attention inward wherever we are creates a pause. It creates a little spaciousness from our need to try to figure out what our part is. And the answer to that question, like, what's my part, is only going to come from bringing our attention inward and beginning to ask, right? Wow. And asking things like, what's the frequency of my part? You know, what's the impulse of my part? What is it showing up as I ask, what's my part? Like, what's the one thing that I can do on this planet right now as it's falling apart, right? I can't fix anything. So what can I do? And keep asking and respond to what comes, and just keep playing. And I'll tell you, I have not had the easiest ride in giving my gift. It's been like big waves and roller coasters and big waves and roller coasters. And the only thing that kept me on track was my trust that life knew better than I did, that life knew how to move through this incredibly challenging eye of the needle moment that we're in, that I wasn't going to be able to figure it out. So the more I cultivated my trust, and the more that I opened to the idea that I am life in my uniqueness, and the more that I open to the peace that's available in the diversity of our heart, like you were saying, here we are and we feel connected. You know, I've had years of learning communities where across all, across the world, we feel this connection. So I would say putting your attention, giving yourself 100% of your attention, choosing to cultivate greater coherence in the heart of your life, like really bringing in, like, what does it require? My awareness, my breath, my getting out of my head, my pausing before I respond, like all of those things is the most essential thing you can do, and will put you on the path to living the life you were born here to live. I don't know any other way to get there but in. I don't.
And you're such a great example of that for us to follow. That's what it looks like when you go within. I love that you say it starts with this question: what is my purpose? And instead of this idea that we just have to know, ask within, ask, go into the life force and ask. It will show you. And as you say that, I mean, this whole summit started with me asking a question, like, how am I supposed to be a leader? That's how it started. And what I love about it is that life was like, good, I'm glad you asked. I have a job for you.
Nice.
And then it came forward, and it's been so enriching what's come forward through this. And of course, like you said, it's not something you can necessarily predict. You've got to follow and trust the path that it puts you on. But it's so beautiful how you've just really laid out for us an entire framework. I mean, someone watching this can literally, the next thing they do, sit quietly, go within and start asking and start that conversation. And like you said, commit with your whole heart, and then move into trust and keep asking. It will show you your part, your note to play. I love that. So beautiful. So now what I want to, you had mentioned a few key words here that I know are really important to something you're working on right now. You've really touched on presence for us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the virtual retreat you were doing, because it sounds really interesting. And you talked about these 3 pillars that you're working on. So let's talk about that and share it with the audience.
Yeah. I love doing things in learning communities, where everybody commits to something together. And I love creating containers where it's not about a course or a prescriptive path, but that we can be together and we can explore certain ideas and certain simple practices that bring us more fully inward, right? So that's probably why I'm talking about that so much, because we just invited a group of people to commit these 3 months right now, May, June, and July. And we asked everybody to commit to cultivating greater coherence in the heart of their daily lives, and to do it in the safe harbor of a community of people all choosing to do the same. What happens when we do that? And we have a beautiful, mighty network where we can see each other and we can share ideas and things, and we come together in events. But the most important thing is that we actually say, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to put this purpose first. I feel a pull to come together with other like-hearted people. And yes, I want my life to be more coherent, and I want to be expressing my unique gifts, right? So the first thing is I'm choosing it. And so the first steps, we offered very, very simple guidance for people, like notice your breath. Like what happens right now? We just all stop, feel bring our awareness to the bottom of our feet so that we're out of our heads for a moment, giving our minds a break and opening up our connection to the earth. And clearing the places where we're constricted. There's lots of constriction inside of these dense bodies that really aren't dense. Actually, the truth is that there's mostly empty space in here, but there's places where we've clenched our fist in resistance to something. And even try this right now, like clench your fist. And instead of opening your fist up, all you have to do is stop clenching. That's the move. Inside, anytime we feel any resistance inside of us, we just invite our breath and our presence to just invite it to stop clenching. Because the moment that we stop clenching, we begin to open up to life. And so the first month is just calling us into presence. what do you want to let go of in your life? What do you want to transform in your life? What do you want to activate in your life? Get clear about your intentions, because the universe responds to passionate intent and unconflicted behavior. So if you can get clear about what your intention is, what do I want to release in my life? What do I want to let go of? What do I want to activate? What do I want to transform? How do those things guide my intention? And then for 3 months, can I align my actions to really drop into those intentions? And then the second month is resonance. And that's the one I think is kind of reflecting of what I'm talking about, where I, with my awareness in the bottom of my feet more, with my awareness in my belly more, which is like a whole neural network in itself. I'm starting to trust my belly and my heart relationship more around how I feel before I make a decision. It's coming up from the earth and down. That the more I provide that spaciousness in my awareness, the more I come into resonance with my own tone, the more that tone feeds into the environment around me, because what I feed the field matters. So I'm not feeding it with so much fear and resistance and no, and I'm feeding it with my presence, my breath, my desire to respond with loving care, right? So I'm feeding the field. And the more I do that, the more I look around and life starts to show me itself. I start to feel more connected with everything. I become into resonance. My unique note starts to find its harmony with what's going on around me. I move out of that place of where it's kind of dissonant and I start to settle in, because I don't think any of us know what's on the other side of this shift. I don't think we can comprehend it with our current state of awareness. And so it requires us to come into resonance with something that we can feel but can't define, and come into resonance with a greater field that actually allows us to leap into a greater sense of relaxation and trust, right? So resonance, it's like tuning our instrument to a unified experience of life as opposed to a separated experience of life. Those are just two vibrations. There was a reason for them, and now they're changing, right? And then the last part is emergent. So if I were to spend 3 months, I am spending 3 months, people are spending time. If I choose to put my awareness on myself, bring my attention there, spend more time connecting in with life all around me, what emerges as my unique expression? What begins to emerge as the choices that I'm making that are in alignment with my intention to be more loving and more coherent? So it's, again, not a course, it's a container where we're all choosing to put our attention on those key areas and then sharing with each other what emerges as we do. Because wherever you're at in the spectrum, right, wherever you're at in this moment of realizing that there's something different emerging from you than what's going on outside, wherever you are in that spectrum, it's time. It's time to let the truth of who you are out. And it's going to require that you slow down and give you 100% of your presence and care. And that's where it's going to come from.
I mean, I love what you're saying here, because you're really emphasizing just how powerful the present moment is. I mean, we know, we've all heard for years and years that that's where the power is. It's in this present moment. And I was smiling before really big, because as I was writing a question down, you started answering it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So you had mentioned about the future that none of us are really sure what that's going to bring. And that's true. I mean, we can't fully know. But do you also do work seeding the future? I mean, I know, actually, let me change that a little bit, because yes, you are seeding. Of course you are, because you're in your powerful present moment and you're living in the imaginal cell state, which is going to create the future, right? Versus the caterpillar primordial soup. But do you also spend time visualizing what's coming next? Are you sending that out in the field?
Well, there's a couple ways I want to respond to this. And one is we're always seeding the future. We're always feeding the field, and what we're feeding the field with is manifesting as our experience of this life. So we're either contributing to the breakdown and to a reality based on separation, or we're beginning to create a new reality based on a unification, ourselves as unified. So we're always feeding the field all the time, right?
Okay.
So then it's our choice of what we get to do with it. Yeah, I forget what you asked me now.
So one of the things, so I'll share with you a personal example. One of the things I say almost every morning is I wake up and I say, I have decided that we are on the highest timeline for the good of all humanity, and it's happening now. I state we're on the ascension paradise timeline. And I said, I don't know how this is happening. I give that over to God completely. I just know it's happening because I've decided it. And that's a statement I make every morning. And then I spend a little time visualizing, well, let's fast forward and see what we've built. And I go in there and I look at the things that we're building, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm excited about what the new that has come forward, and the way we have shifted. And so I'm trying to use that sort of power of visualization to seed little ideas of what it's looking like as I do the work to be present and tap into myself and move into all the energy that you're talking about. Because like you've said, the power really is in this present moment, and how we're choosing to either react or respond, depending on how conscious and coherent we are. So I guess my question to you is, do you also play in the quantum field and go in there and drop little ideas?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to one thing that you said about the present moment, and it is the only place that life is happening, right? So the present moment is everything, right?
Yeah.
This is the place where change can happen. Otherwise, we're in past and future orientation, and we're just in separation. So this is the only place that we're going to be able to do the great work that we're here to do. So let's do that. It's an interesting question, because I'll tell you something that happened to me early on when I was working, when I first said yes to this one job that I've had in all these different iterations. Was that my whole system's mind turned on, this capacity for me to kind of see the bigger picture, which I think's been helpful. Like, I think about me as this little tiny speck on the earth here, and the earth and the sun and the cosmos are going through this evolutionary leap. So I get that I'm just like this one part that could line up or not.
Okay. Yeah.
But when I would, like, as I was opening to this whole systems experience, if I would think for myself, like, oh, this means I'm going to be a speaker on stage, right? Because I was with Barb Marks Hubbard. He was the new rising thing, Dwelled Agent, all these, Gene Houston, all these really amazing people. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be that. The second that I attached an identity to what I was becoming, my view got myopic. And I could see mostly the path towards that. And it was so distinct that I stopped, like, trying to define my role in relationship to what was emerging, because it changed my capacity to sense a greater whole. So do I think more I notice what's emerging when I'm in this state, and I give that energy. And instead of trying to go, oh, well, if that's happening, then that's going to happen, I'm actually like giving energy to what's emerging, and more from a place of curiosity and excitement, and a sense of how do I respond to what's emerging now. And if what seems to be emerging seems distorted to me, like sometimes you're in a situation where you feel like it's a certain way, and other people around you seem to have a different idea of what's going on, or if something, I then turn back inward, because there's some place that I've kind of left, right? And so I move out of the distortion internally instead of resisting it externally. So I do get what you mean about seeding the field. And I think I seed the field by being a good cultivator of the garden of my life as it's needing water and needing soil and needing my attention and all of that. And then I'm surprised at how flourishing the garden is as a result of my present moment awareness and the quality of my care. So it's a little,
I love that though. I mean, you're giving me so much. You're really, I mean, what's beautiful here is you really expanded for me, and I'm sure for others who are listening to this, just the amount that's available to us in this present moment, what we could be present to, that, you know, I think that, well, first of all, this is very much, you know, an area of expertise in your life. So you're really here to help, you know, you're leading in this, which is beautiful, but you're really showing me, it's like, oh, there's layers, Therese, to presence that you could be a part of, that perhaps, you know, because like you said, there is sort of a idea of like, well, this is what I'd like to see. And that lasering down our focus. So I love that you're inviting me and those who are listening to open that back up again. So there's the trust key, right there.
yeah.
Because if we're in this present moment and we're fully activating and we're leaning in, like you're showing us how to do, I feel like the work that needs to be done, the things that need to come forward, they just require our power and our presence and attention. And like you are, excuse me, talking about moving into resonance with that, which, you know, creates the beautiful ripple on the pond. It's like how I kind of feel like when I listen to you, I'm like, well, how could it not go that way? If we just show up for this right now, if we just show up for this right now and connect in and feel ourselves as part of the fabric. I love that you're really and what you're showing me is just how powerful it is to be the cell. Don't try to be the entire butterfly, that you've got a job within this beautiful butterfly. And there's something so freeing about that you're sharing. I mean, there's just a lot, like you said, you've really opened up the lens again. And it's not so much about, I think that one of the things that we're working through, I know individually I do, but I think collectively we are, is this need to control it.
Yeah.
And I see that as, you know, as I was sharing with you about my thoughts about the future, as well-intentioned and positive as they are, still a little bit of, I got to try and control this. I don't like what's going on out there. So I'm going to like put all my mental power on my power of visualization to sort of mold things rather than really trusting the bigger plan here that life and nature is bringing forward to us in this moment to participate in.
Yeah, that old ways just, I mean, we can't keep it up. You know, we can't keep up, you know, trying to do everything and trying to hold it off or trying to fix it. You know, right now, we're just not in that moment. We're not in that moment in the cycle of this evolutionary leap. So we're in a moment where our trust is one of our greatest friends, right? Our tuning in. There's a quote that I'll read that a friend of mine wrote as we were thinking about an event where everybody just like answered this call. But this is the way that I feel, that there is a call coming from no leader, no culture, no language, no time. A call that is coming from within your deepest self, the unlimited intelligence that you know you already are. It's taking over you and you can feel it. To whatever extent right now that you are feeling a little stirring inside that's calling for your attention, right now, in this moment, in this turn of the spiral, that's what life needs most from us, is for us to really go in and access that unique place. And you can feel it. It slows things down, and that need to be someone, to be something, to fulfill some external story about who you are, starts to lose its grip a little bit, right? Because we all want to be successful and we all want to be all these things, but we're not in a time where the old idea of success is really attainable anymore. It's not possible. And whatever is coming has to be radically different than what is, because what is actually breaking down on all scales.
Yeah.
So there is a leap of faith. There's a leap of letting go of what my part is and my importance and all of it, and get that living the life that you came to live, just doing the part you came to do, turning your attention inward and cultivating coherence is the most important thing that you can be doing. And that as you do it with earnest, then you will find the partners and teammates. You'll be guided to the right choices. And they're always going to be simpler than we imagine. They're
Yeah.
always going to be filled with more kind of like fractal prototypes. It's not the big things right now. It's building models that are based on unity, like prototyping and playing with new lenses on what would we create if we believed that we were connected to all things and that we were inseparable. What would we create? How would we act? What would we do? Like, that's the place that I was talking about, right? It's not what we're looking at, it's where we're looking from. So from this place where I am going to try on the full belief that I am one with life. That means I've access to life, that I am life, right? So what happens if I try that on? How does it change myself? How does it change my relationships? How does it change my environment? And how does it impact the world? I believe it impacts the world in the one way that is most needed right now.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. That is, there's so much here that I'm going to listen to this again just so I can reabsorb it. Because what I love about it is you're bringing so much relief in what you speak, and it's so powerful. There's a simplicity here that we tend to overcomplicate because it's so natural and it's so beautifully simple in its design that our brain tricks us, right? If we go up into our mind, we get tricked that that's too easy, or it's too simple, or it's too small. And it must be more than that, which is just that, again, that's a type of separation thought too, right? Because we're not trusting the internal guidance that's coming. So I love everything that you're saying and how you're bringing it back to the power of the present and how you're looking at what's being presented to you. That is a big takeaway for me today. So I hope those listening, you're feeling that too, because I think it's one shift that we could easily make right now that could literally start a ripple of change in your life and how you're approaching this and what you then therefore start creating from that space. So that's
And
beautiful.
as leaders, like if we aren't coming from a unitive narrative, if we aren't putting on our we're all connected glasses,
Yeah.
right? And leading from that place, then we're leading from the old way, right? So we need to keep checking in with ourselves. Like, am I making this choice from an old awareness that we've been embedded in? So forgive ourselves, right? An old awareness that we were embedded in that told us that we were separate. And so all of our actions have been based on that belief. And so it's like in those moments, am I responding from that old fear and belief of separation, or am I responding from a place of interconnectedness, learning to trust that and stabilize more and more my acceptance of that truth? And then what does it change and who comes into my life? And, it's not easy. It's not easy what we're going through. It's going to get really, really hard. And if we are distracted and ungrounded and not connected to our inner landscape where we can feel a greater connection to life, then it is going to be really, really hard. It's going to be really, really hard. So as leaders, we need to model it. We need to be the transmission of it so that the people that are inspired to our leadership can find their own sense of relaxation, especially as it starts to get hard. Because imagine when more and more people wake up that the present moment is actually something different than they believed, and that all these things that we've done to ourselves and the planet is because we were so wrong about our place and our part. It's going to be a bit more chaotic even than now. And so can we stay centered while that ripple of awakening happens, so that we can be those islands of coherence to help lift that chaos to a higher order through the quality of our presence and our commitment and our trust in life? That's really the question. And you and I talked about one other thing before we go, and I'll have to go soon, is we talked about fractal-based manifestation. And so since we're talking to leaders, I wanted to just offer that up, because you and I talked where we get called, we get tapped on the shoulder, and we're all getting called to these new, innovative solutions that are based on a unitive perspective. As we're waking up and tuning in, then that's what's coming. But they're like huge. They're like, oh, we need millions of dollars and we need all these people. And in some ways we need to keep checking in. Is this coming from my sense of separation, so that the design can keep changing, right? So anyway, so with fractal-based manifestation, we allow for our awareness of this whole kind of download that we're getting to be present, but we focus our attention on what we can do right now with the information, energy, and resources that we have available that are aligned with that intention and with that view. Like, we just keep checking in and we keep doing those things. And on the next ring out that has our attention and our awareness are the things that are likely to emerge as I do those things. We can kind of see what would be the next step. What happens is we get overwhelmed by the third ring out, which is the possibilities. And we start having these meetings with people that we shouldn't be talking to yet, because until we're stabilized at this level, we're not being very efficient. We're being distracted. So if we can place our attention on what I can do now, and the things that are beginning to emerge as I do those things, and anything else, you write it down, you record it, and you notice, well, as I do this first two layers, that thing might naturally appear and get pulled in, and it actually might show that that isn't even part of it, right? It was an idea that you had, but it's not happening as your Taurus begins to generate and you start to respond to what's emerging, instead of designing it ahead of time and planning out how it's going to be at the end, and creating from this place of your design instead of what's emerging as the result of the inspiration of your design and your partnership with life as it unfolds. And the wild ideas, like, I get these downloads, it's like that goes on the far side of the board. It's always there. I don't get distracted by it, but I can keep focusing here and notice what comes. And I think as a new Earth leader, that's going to be really important, because what's being required is not the big things. What's being required right now, because life is in maximum innovation, maximum composting, breaking down the old, decaying what's no longer there, creating new nourishment. It's like we are really being connected and invited to try new things so that we can find the things that work. So we should be building to learn right now, not building to last, right? This is the time to build and have playgrounds and try out these new things based on a unitive worldview, based on a lens of that I'm connected to all things. And the things that are meant to be part of the new will start to gain some energy. And the things that are the old that we keep trying to reinforce because we know them, right, will have an opportunity to fall away because we don't have our attention on them, and we're not trying to engineer an evolutionary leap. We're actually allowing that leap to move us forward instead of us designing what that looks like. That's our ego.
Yeah, that's
we can do
beautiful.
it.
a beautiful way to put it, and a great way to see how we can start to shift out of ego and into coherence with the field, and create from there. And I love what you said about building to learn and not building to last. I am I am curious about what that means, and I'm going to go inward and feel for what that means to me, because I think that was a powerful point you just made. And so I know you have to go, so I really want to give people the opportunity to connect with you and your work. So
Mhm.
can we share with people, first of all, you have a beautiful gift that you're sharing with the audience today, the Rest in Resonance series. So can you just quickly share what that is for the audience?
Yeah. So Gary Malkin and I decided to join our energies at the very beginning of the year and do a series that we call Rest in Resonance. And it was part of a larger global initiative called 7 Days of Rest. So this was our offering. Many offerings happened during that time. And Gary Malkin is a world-class musician. He was the one who scored the Thrive movies. You've been talking to
Yeah, I
Foster
love that.
Kimberly. Just a really exquisite guy. And so we came together over 7 days. We invited different guests. There was a different theme for every day. And we used the power of our collective presence as a community coming together for the intention of launching 2022 from a place of internal rest and coming into resonance with life. That's why I thought it would be a wonderful gift, because that's what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
there's 7 videos with 7 different guests and musical interludes where we experienced our oneness with each other and allowed ourselves to relax more deeply and really launch the year off with that. So I just thought that would be a lovely gift for everyone. And it's enough continuity. Like if you were to take one a day for 7 days and really allow yourself to internally relax, which is what's required for us to move out of holy shit, what's going to happen, to like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Like what's possible when I come in that turn away from
Yeah.
what's falling away into what's emerging. Yeah. So that's helpful for that. And the 2 things that I'm doing now are really, like I said, cultivating coherence in the heart of our lives and in community. I think one of the most essential things we can do in the planet right now. So I'm choosing to put my attention on that. So I created with some other organizations. It's a real synergistic project, the Global Coherence Pulse. And we come together every month. We bring a musician in, we bring a speaker in, we bring the community together. And for an hour and 90 minutes, we learn about and we cultivate greater coherence in our life. And we pulse the planet with the energy that we generate during that session. So we're learning that what we feed the field matters, and that when we do it in community, our impact is magnified, it's accelerated. So we get a personal boost. And then, for me, once a month, it's lovely. It's a wonderful offering, but it's not enough. I'm always wanting to build the learning community space so that we can make it an everyday focus. So I created the Islands of Coherence social network. It's islandsofcoherence.net. And there's a whole cohort of people that are supporting that community. And we're putting cultivating coherence first. And so if you come into that network, you find all kinds of islands, all kinds of resources, and all of the people in there are choosing to practice coherence, to come into coherence. And it's a social environment where there's no ads. You get to follow who you want to follow. You get to put in front of you what you consume to be things that could support you putting that purpose first. So I just thought I want to make coherence be something that everybody knows about and that everybody has an opportunity to experience, because I think it's the most essential thing. So that's my one project.
It's beautiful. It's literally getting all the imaginal cells together. As we do that, we're going to create the butterfly. So I love that you're offering this to people. The Global Coherence Pulse is free to join. So I really encourage everyone to show up for that, because that even just once a month could make a huge impact. And then imagine if we did that even more. I mean, just how rapid everything would start to shift and emerge, right? We would see the emergence. We would start to really see that. So thank you for providing those spaces for us to come together and start bringing our presence together to create something really powerful in this moment.
Yeah.
Teresa, it has been such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for everything you've shared. It's like a mini course in presence, and I absolutely adore it. So thank you again. And to those who are listening, I hope that you are feeling just how powerful your place in the world is, and this conversation is. I hope it guides you to go inward and start to feel your own personal resonant field. Ask what your purpose is. Keep asking the question. Life is going to tap you on the shoulder and show you. So with that, Teresa, thank you again.
Mm.
To those who are watching, I'm sending you all my love. Thank you for being a part of the New Earth Leadership Summit, and stay magical.
Thanks, Teresa. Bye, everybody.